Today we'll be talking about different types of reactions as I speak into a crappy microphone. There are two main types of reactions, endothermic and exothermic.
An endothermic reaction is when an object absorbs heat rather than gives off heat. For example, when you melt an ice cube in your hand. The heat from your hand melts the ice cube. An exothermic reaction, however, is basically the opposite of an endothermic reaction. The object gives off heat. For example, when you're forming ice cubes, the heat from the water is taken away in a freezer, basically, and is transformed into ice. The second law of thermodynamics states that the total entropy of an isolated system always increases over time, or remains constant, in ideal cases where the system in a steady state or irreversible process. And this has to do with thermal equilibrium, and thermal equilibrium is basically when two or more objects meet each other and equate thermally. And thermal equilibrium is special since it follows the zeroth law of thermodynamics, which can be seen here. This also has to do with closed systems, and a closed system is basically when it can only exchange energy within its own surroundings, which is the least common system. Most systems are open systems, which means that they can exchange energy with just about anything. Thermal equilibrium in a closed system is much different than in an open system. For example, we're going to use a pot full of water over a stove with a cover on top of it. This is good since it kind of represents what a closed system would be. Within the pot, the water would eventually reach a point where it could no longer get any hotter. So in a closed system, this basically means that the object will get hotter and hotter until it reaches thermal equilibrium, which is where it will stop. Now we get to talk about Gibbs free energy, which is a thermodynamic quantity equal to the enthalpy minus the product of the entropy and absolute temperature. So it would be delta G equals delta H minus T delta S. So the Gibbs free energy chart will tell you if a reaction is spontaneous or not. So if the change in entropy is greater than 0 and the change in heat is less than 0, then it is spontaneous. And, well, the opposite if it's greater than 0 and greater than 0. The final point of this horribly formatted video is the first law of thermodynamics, which states that energy can be altered, though it cannot be created or destroyed. For example, spaghetti. Spaghetti is still spaghetti when it is cooked, though it is altered to some extent. Let's use matches as another example. When you strike a match, this causes friction, which ignites the flame rapidly. The flame then reacts with the wood, creating mostly carbon monoxide.
Created using Powtoon.